Then he shall confirm. Then he shall confirm. Who? One of the two, Yahweh or the Nagid, which are basically the same, because Yahweh said, I am the first and I am the last, who appears from Rome now to become a king. That's why Mashiach is connected with the Kohen Gadol, the priest. Nagid, prince, is connected with the kingdom, because a prince becomes a king. And we already read the many chapters in scriptures that talk of Michael coming to earth as the prince of princes, because he will become the king of kings, as we see in Revelation 19 again. Then he shall confirm a covenant. It doesn't say make a covenant, because Yahushua already made the covenant when he was cut off from Nagid. Mashiach Nagid was cut off to make a covenant, because you make a covenant by cutting in two, like Abraham did in Genesis. So you cut in two, you make a covenant. Now the second part has to confirm the covenant. That's why, like the fire, and I'm gonna have to read part of it. Let's go to Genesis 15. And I know in Genesis 15 we see that it says, bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram. In this case, female goat, just in case, because I did say he. A turtle dove and a young pigeon. Then he brought all this to him and cut them in two. Because when one makes a covenant in Hebrew, it doesn't say make a covenant. It says cut a covenant. You gotta cut a covenant. That's why they would cut something in two to make the covenant. That's why Mashiach Nagid had to be cut in two to make the covenant. But now the second part, Nagid, is confirming the covenant that the first already made by being cut off through his blood. So now that he cuts in two these animals, it says, verse 17, and it came to pass when the sun went down, the end of times, thief in the night, and it was dark, that behold, there appeared a smoking oven and a burning torch. A smoking oven and a burning torch, like the two witnesses who speak, and fire comes from their mouth, which is the light that gives wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Then appeared a smoking oven and burning torch, the consuming fire, which is the last, that passed between those pieces. So Yahweh came as the consuming fire to pass through the pieces, to confirm the covenant that was made when Abraham cut the pieces. So Abraham cut the pieces to make the covenant. Then the fire went through the pieces to confirm the covenant. So the consuming fire is the one that confirms the covenant. And that consuming fire is the prince, who the beast kills, as we have seen in previous chapters. In Daniel, we see that the beast stands against the prince of princes, the prince of the covenant. This is so important to understand, and I hope you're following. If we go to Malachi 3, we are told of the three people that had to manifest, of whom two already manifested. Behold, I send my messenger, and he will prepare the way before me. That's John the Baptist. Elijah. And Yahweh, whom you seek, and the sovereign whom you seek, as we seek forgiveness of sins, will suddenly come to his temple. As Yahushua said, destroy the temple and I will raise it in 3 days, because his body is the temple. So the sovereign will come to his body through a virgin, and the sovereign whom you seek will suddenly come to his temple. Even, that is the third person, the second coming, because he's Mashiach Nagid. Mashiach, the sovereign whom you seek, will certainly come to his temple, like the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. Even the Nagid, the prince. But look what it says. Even the Malach of the covenant. Even the messenger of the covenant. So even the one who comes to confirm the covenant, according to Daniel. So in Malachi we see him as the Malach of the covenant. In Daniel we see that Malach is actually Michael, who is called the Prince of Princes, who is called the Prince of the Covenant. Daniel 8, which we saw last week, He, the beast, even exalted himself as high as the prince of the host, the prince who is to come, the prince of the host, Michael. And by him the daily sacrifice were taken away. I already mentioned that, already explained that last week. Daniel 8:25, through his cunning, the beast, shall cause the sea to prosper under his rule. And he, the beast, shall exalt himself in his heart. He shall destroy many in their prosperity. He shall even rise against the prince of princes. In Daniel 10:21, it says, but I will tell you what is noted in the scripture of truth. No one upholds me against these except Michael, your prince. Michael, your prince. So we know that Michael is the prince of princes. And in Daniel 11:22, it says, with the force of a flood, they shall be swept away. With the force of a flood, they shall be swept away. What did we read here? And the end of it shall be with a flood. So look at the connection with Daniel 11. It says, with the force of a flood they shall be swept away from before him and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. So with the force of a flood they shall be swept away, the enemies of the beast, from before him, the beast, and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. So how can the prince that makes or confirms the covenant can be the beast, if the beast will kill the prince that confirms the covenant? Makes no sense, but that's how Christians see it. They say that the prince who makes or confirms, and I say make and confirm because they think that he makes it, even though scripture says confirm, because Yahushua already made it. But they are expecting a beast to make a covenant. But the beast, according to Daniel 11:22, the beast actually kills the prince of the covenant who confirms the covenant in Daniel 9. So the prince who confirms the covenant cannot be the beast because he is killed by the beast. So if the beast, who is Satan, kills the prince of the covenant, that means the prince of the covenant is actually positive, good. Is the second manifestation of Yahweh on earth as the prince, the Nagid, that was left after Mashiach was cut off from Mashiach Nagid. Hope that is clear. That's why in Malachi 3 we read the messenger, the Malach of the covenant. Then we see Michael, the Malach, is your prince. And then we see the prince of the covenant. The prince of the covenant is the Malach of the covenant. Michael is the prince of the covenant. Michael manifests in Daniel 12:1, as we see here, at that time, the end, Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. Your prince, the great prince who comes to become the king of kings after being the prince of princes, when he receives the rod of iron to rule over all nations as the horn of iron. Hope that's clear. So there is no way to misinterpret when you take the entire scripture in account, of course. In Daniel 11:22, I just want to check something. We're almost done. Hopefully there are still people listening. In Daniel 11:22, when it says, with the force of a flood they shall be swept away, that same flood is mentioned in Daniel 9. And from before him and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. In Hebrew it says Nagid Berit. Nagid, the same exact word from Daniel 9. And I say that because in certain places where I mentioned the verse prince, well, the word in a verse where he said prince, the word was Sar, which has to do with Michael in the heavens. When he comes to the earth as a man, goes from Sar to Nagid. But even if we don't want to take those verses where it appears Sar, we can take Daniel 11, which is clear that he's talking about the same event. It even mentions the flood. It mentions Nagid as the prince, the Nagid of the covenant, the Nagid of Daniel 9, which confirms the covenant. That is the Nagid Berit, the prince who confirms the covenant. The beast kills them. I repeat and repeat, because to some this is completely different than what they have heard. So I just wanted to show how it is actually very clear when you see close, when you pay attention to scripture. I guess it's established already. The prince of the covenant is the Nagid of Daniel 9, who confirms the covenant, who is the Malach of the covenant, who is the Malach Mikael, who is the prince of princes, etc., whom the beast will kill. So then he shall confirm a covenant. Who? The prince, the Nagid, who the beast will kill, who comes as a Roman, but is actually the manifestation of Yahweh the second time on earth. Then he shall confirm a covenant. Why does he confirm it? Because Yahushua already made it through his blood when he raised the cup. Confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. What did Yahushua said? This is the blood of the new covenant for the many. The new covenant for the many. So now the last comes to confirm the covenant with many. The many who will have to die but then resurrect to enter as the people. Because through the death of the last, that rebellion is taken away from them so that they can be part of the kingdom. So when the last dressed in sackcloth, spiritually speaking, symbolically speaking, to start the 1260 days, through his beginning of the ministry, he is confirming that what Yahushua did and said is still happening. So it will confirm it with many. Why? Because many are called, but few are chosen. So the two witnesses speak to the many, and from the many, Yahweh will choose the few who will receive the name of the Father and the Son, and therefore they won't have to die. But the many who did not receive the names, they will have to die and judge to see if they can enter or not. And those who actually believe in Mashiach, who came and died and resurrected for their sins, they will be justified, but they won't be able to reign as kings as the few will do. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. 1 week, because 70 weeks were determined over our people. But there were 2,000 years in the middle for Gentiles to believe and enter. But when the witness like Moshe starts to preach, the last week starts. That's why the two witnesses begin the last 7 years. The first seal is the beginning of the ministry of the witness like Moshe. When the first seal is opened, the last 7 years start. The last seven or the last week of Daniel, of the 77s. So Yahushua came to finish the 69th week, and the last comes to begin the 70th week. Because what one fulfills one way, the other fulfills the other way. So then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, so as we saw in Revelation 11, the two witnesses are given 1260 days, which is half of a week of years. 1260 days, 3.5 years. But in the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. He, the one who confirmed the covenant, through his death, will bring an end to sacrifice and offering, which were the two things given in Yom Kippur, because the two witnesses will die in Yom Kippur, the feast of Yom Kippur, the feast of atonement. The last will be sacrificed for Kippur, for atonement. The witness like Eliyahu will be given as an offering. So through the death of the witness like Moshe and the witness like Eliyahu, finally their death will bring an end to sacrifice and offering. In Yom Kippur, they would bring sacrifice and offering. Yahushua already died as the he-goat. The last will die as the ox, and the witness like Eliyahu as the offering. So through the death of these two, plus Yahushua 2,000 years ago, Yom Kippur is fulfilled. So through their death, there is actually an end to the sacrifice and offering. It could be said also that the beast, when he kills the two witnesses, will stop the sacrifice and offering, as some take it. And I'm saying it can be taken both ways, because it's through their death, and they are killed by the beast. But the fact that he's saying he shows that it is the Nagid who will make it happen through his death. Sacrifice and offering, Moshe and Eliyahu. He shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing, listen to this, and on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate. That is the abomination of desolation. In Christianity, they say that the beast and the Antichrist are the same exact person. That is wrong. But using that Christian interpretation, plus the interpretation of Daniel 9, how can the beast, that's a question for Christians, how can the beast be the one who makes the covenant if after him comes the abomination of desolation? The abomination of desolation is the actual Antichrist. So we see that the abomination of desolation comes after the first 3.5 years. It's very important to have it understood as I had been explaining it. The witness like Moshe dies, and after he dies, the beast who killed him brings the second coming that the Christians are waiting for. Brings the false Messiah to reveal himself as Christ on earth, and people most will accept him and get the mark of the beast. Because to many Christians, since the beast and the Antichrist are the same, when the Antichrist appears, to them will be the actual Christ, because to them the beast and Antichrist had already appeared. But they are actually two. The beast, then the false prophet, and those two get the false Messiah to appear after the first 3.5 years. So those two will kill the two witnesses who died at the end of the 3.5 years. And after they kill the two witnesses, the two beasts will bring about the false Messiah. That's why it says, and on the wing of abomination shall be one who makes desolate. Once they kill the two witnesses, the abomination of desolation will appear. So how, in the Christian mind, how can the beast be the Antichrist? Or how can the beast be the one who confirms the covenant if then appears the abomination of desolation as a separate entity? It makes no sense. So my point is, when it comes to the Christian doctrine, it has so many holes that it falls in many ways by just checking the scriptures. But this confirms in the right way how after they kill the two witnesses, the abomination of desolation will appear, which will last 1,290 days. So 3.5 years and 30 days. 1 month extra, which is the 30 days of Hosea 5:7, when the chosen few will die. I could continue because there's a couple more things that could be said regarding this, just to make sure everybody understands. But I guess I'm going to go to see if there are any questions, and perhaps through it we can leave everything clear. So, yes, I guess I explained everything. So, and on the wing of abomination shall be one who makes desolate. That is the Antichrist, the abomination of desolation, the false Messiah, who appears in the last half of the last 7 years. Even until the consummation, meaning even until the end of those 1,290 days given to the abomination. Even until the consummation, which is determined, is poured out on the desolate. Poured out. Why? Because the last 3.5 years is when Yahweh will pour out the last 7 plagues, the bowls of wrath, which have the blood of the innocent people who died, those who are justified, those who are innocent through their belief in Mashiach. Their blood will be avenged, or poured on the nations who killed them,